What would you do if you caught your partner cheating? It's a heart-stopping question, right? Oh yes, this an unbelievable romantic story. It was a cool autumn evening in New York City when Claire decided to surprise her husband, Mark. They had been married for 8 years, and lately, their life together had become a routine of work and obligations. That night, feeling the weight of their drifting relationship, Claire bought a bouquet of white lilies and hurried home from her office. She wanted to rekindle the spark between them, to remember the magic that once felt so natural. But as she opened the door to their apartment in Manhattan's Upper East Side, Claire sensed something was wrong. She heard hushed laughter coming from the living room, a woman's laughter. Her heart raced as she approached, her stomach twisting. She peeked into the room and froze. There, on the couch, Mark sat intimately close to another woman. Claire felt as though the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. Her mind blurred with shock and betrayal, Claire left the apartment quietly, her fingers clenched around the lilies. She walked in a daze, wandering through Central Park, trying to process what she'd seen. Anger, sadness, and humiliation washed over her in waves. Yet amidst all those emotions, a question gnawed at her. Had he truly stopped loving her, or was it something else entirely? Lost in thought, Claire's phone buzzed in her pocket. She glanced down to see a message from Luke, her high school sweetheart, whom she hadn't spoken to in years. He was in town for a week, and had found her number on a whim. His message was brief, yet it felt like a lifeline. Remember our favorite spot by the lake? Let's catch up for old time's sake. In a haze of vulnerability and a strange sense of fate, Claire replied. Later that night, she found herself back at Bethesda Terrace in Central Park, where she and Luke had spent countless evenings during their youth. The sight of him was surreal, bringing a flood of memories she thought she'd buried long ago. His familiar smile, his calm presence, they offered comfort and a sense of belonging she hadn't felt in years. Their conversation began innocently, just catching up on life, careers, and family. Luke, now a successful musician who traveled frequently, seemed a world away from her life with Mark. Yet as they spoke, Claire found herself opening up about her failing marriage, about the shock of discovering Mark's betrayal. Luke listened, his blue eyes filled with empathy and an intensity that reminded her of the love they'd once shared. She sensed a spark between them, the rekindling of an old flame that had never truly gone out. Over the next few days, Claire and Luke began meeting regularly, bonding over their shared memories and the bittersweet longing for a past that felt painfully out of reach. Their connection deepened, becoming more intimate with each encounter. Despite herself, Claire felt alive, caught between the guilt of betrayal and the undeniable thrill of rediscovering love. One evening, as they walked hand in hand along the cobblestone streets of Greenwich Village, Luke finally asked her a question that stopped her heart. "Why do you stay with him, Claire?" She looked away, feeling trapped, unsure whether her loyalty to Mark was born out of love or simply the fear of starting over. The tension between them grew, and Luke gently guided her to a small bench nearby, waiting for her to speak. Claire confessed everything, the years of quiet disappointment, the loneliness she'd kept buried, and the emptiness of loving a man who had stopped truly seeing her. Luke listened, his fingers gently tracing her hand, and he confessed he had never found anyone who understood him the way she had. In that moment, all her defenses crumbled. They leaned into each other, and as their lips met, Claire felt an electric jolt, a reminder of the fire she thought she had lost forever. That night, Claire went home and decided she could no longer live in the shadows. Her conversation with Mark the next morning was painful, raw, filled with accusations and wounded pride. She confronted him with everything she had discovered, every ache he had left unaddressed. Mark's feeble attempts to explain only cemented her resolve. As they stood in the same room, strangers to one another, Claire felt a strange sense of peace. She knew she was ready to leave, to break free from the remnants of a broken love and take a chance on something new. A few days later, Claire and Luke met again by the lake in Central Park, a place where they could finally start anew. As the city lights glistened on the water's surface, Luke took her hand, his gaze filled with a promise. They didn't need words. They knew this journey would be different, grounded in years of history and a new commitment to honesty and passion. With Luke by her side, Claire felt the weight of her past slip away. She didn't know where this path would lead, but for the first time in years, she felt alive, willing to embrace whatever the future had in store. Together, they left the park, each step a promise to cherish the love they had found once more, as if they'd been waiting for this moment all along.